Hey historians, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about taking notes. A lot of times we imagine note-taking as kind of a passive process where we just kind of sit, lay back, and write down a couple things in PowerPoint. But actually, taking notes is a very active process. You're actively listening and engaging with the material, considering it, critically thinking about it as you write your notes. So I want to talk to you about how to do that. I've used to teach college as an adjunct professor in America, and I found many of my students don't really know how to take good notes. So making a short video to show you how to take good notes. So I'm a student and the teacher is talking and I see a PowerPoint slide. So as I'm listening to the PowerPoint as the teacher is talking, I have to write down what they say in that PowerPoint. So I saw that slide and I write down exactly what the teacher put in the PowerPoint. I'm using a marker so you can see it better. Notice I'm not writing very fancy. These are notes just for me personally as a student, so I can write messy if I want. As long as I can read it as a student, everything's fine. And then they talk about their points, and I kind of imitate what the PowerPoint says. There's a bullet point under that, so I just write what the bullet point is. Early. You write the years. And the teacher's talking about this point. Okay, so I write down one thing at a time, and so I write down what the PowerPoint says. Now I could leave it at that, but really, you should write down also what the teacher says about this point. You're not done just because you wrote down what the PowerPoint says. On the other hand, you also don't want to write down everything the teacher says because that's really hard to do. It's hard to write that fast. So what you do is you sort of do something in the middle where you write something the teacher says about it, but only in a couple of words. You summarize the main idea. Okay, so let's say I'm a teacher now, so I'm talking about how the early Middle Ages is a time sometimes called the Dark Ages, that this is a time of increased warfare, political instability, and de-urbanization. People left the cities and began doing more farming, and the teacher goes on about that. So me as a student, I'm not going to write every sentence he says, but it seems to me like this is not fun. Okay, so I kind of might draw a little sad face there because he's listing all these hard things, and I might say political social life down arrow. So sometimes I do little symbols to help me remember. Down means like decrease, going down, things are not good, that kind of thing. I might even say a word that the teacher says, Dark Ages, that kind of sums up at this kind of time. And then as the teacher continues, I just keep writing what the teacher says. And I continue just listening. I don't write down everything they say, but the teacher says it's a happy time, I think times are good. But I just write down at least the PowerPoint, and then anything else I can that gives the main idea of what each of these things is. Okay, so that's the idea. That's how you take notes in that process. In the moment when the teacher is lecturing, you write down the PowerPoint and also write down other things, anything else you can from what the teacher is saying about those points. Okay, so let's say that I'm finished with the lecture and I want to review my notes now. So here's a couple of things you can do, some tips for you. One, so as I look back, it could be that all I wrote was the PowerPoint. I didn't have time to write a lot of extra stuff, so it's not the end of the world. What you can do is you read your notes over again. A lot of times, as you read them, it jogs your memory. You remember what the teacher said about each point as you read the notes again. So what I can do is, as I read my notes over again, I can say, okay, trade, bridge between East and West. Oh, then I realize, I remember that now. I can make notes. East meaning China, Middle East. West meaning Europe. Okay, so I said, and that's what you meant. So I write that down, and I can go through my notes, and if there's anything that I want to fill out more, I can just fill it out from memory, right? So the notes are like meant to jog your memory a bit. Okay. This is one thing you can do. Add explanations to your notes later, after the lecture is over. Now, other ideas. If you come across something that you don't know exactly, you could also just look up in your textbook. Because usually the lecturers follow reading in some way, so you can, if there's like, I don't really know why I wrote Baghdad there, I don't know what that means, you can go back to your textbook as well, and your textbook will talk about Baghdad being the capital, so I can write down other things. I can look at my textbook on the other side, and I can just take your textbook and write things down. So Baghdad, I can say, is the capital of the Abbasids. Trade center. I could add other things from the textbook later if I really don't know what it means, or if all else fails, always use Google. If it's something that's not in your textbook and not anywhere, you can always try to look it up on Google to help you, or other classroom resources. That's fine. So you can kind of fill out things later from your textbook and from your memory when the lecture's over. The other thing you can do, another good idea, is at the bottom to write a summary. So one way of taking notes is to leave in some space in the bottom of your paper and also on the side of the paper. See the space that I left there? You could add other notes there too. So it could be that you can say, what many people do is they'll write extra notes here. So let's say I want to make some label for this to say, what is all this about anyway? So for this, I could just kind of label on the side, Islamic world, achievements. Okay. So notice I abbreviated that. A lot of times you can abbreviate things when you're taking notes. I can't emphasize that enough. That can help you. So Islamic world achievements, it's like a little keyword or a little label that helps me know what this is all about here on the side here. Or I could label this city life. Here, city life includes, these capitals, madrasas, schools, philosophies. This happens in cities. So different things I can do on the margin. I can add these things later that kind of helps me organize my notes. Okay. And this is also a really nice feature. Is if you leave space in the bottom, what many students can do is write a summary at the bottom to summarize. So if you can summarize this page in a couple of sentences of your own, using your own words, to say, okay, what is this? What were these notes basically about? You can write a few sentence summaries here. Things such as trade in the Islamic world brought wealth, increased communication, philosophy, technology. It's all going up. So it's kind of a basic summary of all this, what this page is about. That can help you, again, just really get and understand and get it into your mind as real knowledge, as really deep, seeped in knowledge for your stuff. So these are a couple of ideas for you. Hopefully that's helpful with some tips on how to take notes.